Today I'm going to be talking about the mid-patch update for 12.23b. There are a bunch of changes here, mainly to address most of the outliers of the patch, the overpowered champs, and items which are just overperforming in general. So we're going to go through, talk about how these are affecting the top lane for the most part, mainly talk about top lane changes, and how the rest of the changes will adjust the meta and what we might see going into the first patch of the new season. So to begin with, Mundo is being nerfed. This one was going to be obvious. Mundo is the strongest top laner in the game at the moment. He doesn't really have anything that punishes him too hard in laning phase. He will. The main problem with Mundo right now is he is really good in low elo, but then really falls off in high when you start getting your thing like your tools like your Borks, your Divine Cinder, stuff like this really hurt Mundo. Mundo does not do well into these items, and Camille, Fiora, stuff like this are just good into him for this reason. So overall, he's losing some health regen early. He's losing a bit more of his health when his passive drops off. He's losing a bit more late game health regen. This doesn't kick in until like really late game, so your level 16 to 18 mark kind of thing. Your Q is now going to cost less rank 1, but more the later ranks. This is fairly all these are fairly these two are fairly minimal. Your health cost doesn't really matter too much. You can usually get the cost of the ability back by the time after you've used it. But the big one is your R cooldown. Your R cooldown being longer, it does hurt you because you use this very much as an engage tool and a way of surviving in team fights. So another 10 seconds slapped on this will hurt. Overall, this shouldn't nerf Mundo too much. With other things adjusted within this patch, Mundo will probably come out maybe even stronger than he currently is. Ravenous will nerf the top performers of the item, who usually tend to go Bork and AD threats who go Divine Cinder or stuff like this. Hecarim is losing a lot of damage. This means a lot to Hecarim because this will stack up over 3 times. So this is 3% for 100 AD. 369, so 9% by the time you have 100, plus you're losing the original 1% of the stack. You're losing around 12% by late game, which is a huge amount of damage to be losing on Q. I expect Hecarim to be tagged super hard by this. Plus, your Jack shows and your Ravenouses are being nerfed. He went Ravenous first, I'm pretty sure, and that's just gonna hurt him in general. Janna, I'm actually surprised to see Janna nerfed as much as she is here. Janna is a really good support at the moment. She's one of the best, but she is losing 2% movement speed. This hurts quite a bit. This will hurt the better Janna players, the ones which roam more. But the E one is the big one. Losing 10 AD on your first max ability, which this is what your ADC or your jungler usually gains, or your top laner if you're running something like an Aatrox. This is a huge amount of AD to lose. 10 AD is a really, really valuable amount for the shield to give. And losing that will hurt Janna. Her win rate might not go down as much, but this will hurt her in general. So we might see a win rate dip. Lilia is losing 1% of her passive percent health damage. This is fairly minimal. It's mainly the constant ticks which give this the passive value. Losing 1% isn't going to hurt too much. It possibly will lower her. I mean, it will lower her lethals, but yeah, it's minimal. The 5 damage on this will hurt as well, though. This is probably bigger than this. 5 damage on a spammable ability is quite a bit when this ability has already been tagged fairly recently. So we'll have to see how that comes out. Lux is getting some massive buffs. This is huge for mid lane Lux. If you're going for like your 400 to 600 AP builds, this is 40 to 60 damage on your E, just being slapped on for free. This will help your wave clear. This will help your lethals. This is huge. Plus your R gaining 20% AP. You will use this to clear waves more for now. The cooldown on this ability was already really short. You can combo this with QER, that will almost guarantee kills on targets which aren't building a lot of health and don't have a lot of magic resist. So Lux is a really strong mid laner now. This is a huge buff. Mordekaiser is getting a bug fix. We didn't actually see the W nerf, which was possibly going to come in this patch. So this will hurt more jungle a lot. This might kill more jungle. There is a possibility. We'll have to see though. This slapped on with the other jungle nerfs to Mord. Plus the green one is being nerfed. More jungle might be dead, but I'm gonna say it will sit around a 50, sub 50% win rate. Yeah, it will hurt him definitely, like significantly hard. Nyla is losing some early game power from what I've seen. Her total AD ratio is going down on Q. It's her first max ability. Her Q is gaining more with crit scaling. This is to decentivize her Eclipse and her Ravenous builds. The Q passive is gaining some more healing on scaling with crit chance. Her R is losing some bonus AD scaling on it. Her R total damage is losing some bonus AD scaling as well. And her R healing is going up late. Up more. Well, actually, yeah, just up later, but down early. Rammus is getting a fairly trivial nerf. Rammus will still probably be one of the best junglers in the game. Green Spite and Jaxo being nerfed will tag him as well, but I think this being fairly minimal shouldn't do too much to Rammus. But you gotta remember these no longer factor into his additional resistances, so they don't mean as much as they used to. Udyr is losing some. His mana cost is going down later on his ENR. This is WENR. This is pretty huge. This allows him to sustain more, do more damage, clear waves more, use his spells just in general more on the waves later on into the game. It's nice. It's fairly trivial and a bit placebo, but it will help him. His Q is losing 2% damage at max rank, and the ratio is going down by 1% per 100 AD. The Q bonus physical damage is going down by 10, but it scales harder. This you're gonna need you're gonna need what 300 and you're gonna need around 333 AD or something to even this out. But yeah, you'll need an exorbitant amount of AD. It's rarely going to happen. So this is enough as well. The Q awakened physical damage is going down as well significantly. AD Udyr is taking a huge tag here. This will really hurt AD Udyr. I don't think it will kill it, but it will hurt it definitely. It was very strong though, so we'll have to see. And his R-based tick rate is going up. They like adjusting this ability. It's kind of the lever they use for the tank Udyr. But with Sunfire's gone as a mythic item, I don't see this bringing back AP Udyr, tank Udyr. I think tank Udyr still struggles with not having a true mythic identity. Jaxo will be the mythic to go on tank Udyr, but even then, it's not Sunfire's. And Udyr's main problem was it wasn't that he wasn't tanky, it was the fact that he lacked the damage on the AP build. So maybe you'll go something like a Demonics and a Magi's, we'll have to see. Zed is losing 10 damage base on Q. This is pretty huge. Zed likes being able to harass people through the wave with Qs because you run that with Scorch. Well, I see a lot of Zeds running it. It's also 10 late, which is pretty big because you need to be able to kill people in your R or Q combos. Usually later on you do overkill people, so this isn't as bad as the earlier one, but the earlier one does hurt quite a bit. The E cooldown's pretty big as well. Losing 1 second late on this is going to hurt because you spam it a lot with your clone when you can get in range of people. And the E damage going down is pretty hefty as well. I'm glad they're nerfing Zed. Zed has been strong for so long, and I really dislike this champion. Plus, it's ridiculous. Clips Bloom and Jungle is not healthy. Jaxo is going up by 100 golden cost, and the armor magic resist is going down per second in combat. So this will now go from 21 to 14 again. They're going to have to buff the item to for actual tanks rather than bruisers running this item. Things like your Mordekaisers and stuff. Like your champs which play like bruisers don't build a lot of resistances because this item feels bad. It feels awful building Jaxo. Although you are tankier, what you used to gain from Sunfire is in the damage ring and just feeling like you're doing more. Jaxo does not feel that. It doesn't feel satisfying as an item to use, and if that's one of their criterias, they need to change this item. LDR is being buffed massively. This is the reason why I'm going to make a tank video later on this week, because I think high elo tanks are going to go. I don't see how top lane high elo tanks will exist anymore. I think Heartsteel as an item is too low elo skewed. Radiant Virtue is too niche, and Jack Show feels bad and isn't what a lot of tanks want to run when they are already so tanky, because they just don't have the damage to kill people. And I like tanks being tanky, but when there are so many ways of killing tanks that are tanky, it feels so meaningless being tanky at the moment. So I'm going to do a talk about that. I'll dive deep into it. But this is ridiculous. Like, this is so much damage. ODR should be a conscious choice you make, but now it's going to be built every single game. And if you're not running health in your runes or anything as an ADC, even against bruisers, you are getting close to this gap between health. If they're running things like Sterix, Gore Drinker, another health item on top of that, something like a Cleaver, this isn't too far off that. This is what this will be around I'll be around 2k, including like health, if you're running health shard, other health items, something like a D-Blade, and then on top of that, they have higher health gains. Like, you won't be too far off this, and this gain is so huge. So, I think Collector Second will still be best, but LDR is now a really good third, fourth option if you need it. And even second, if you're behind and you need to be able to do damage to tanks and you're only able to hit tanks in fights. Moss Stomper is losing a pretty decent amount of a shield. This will hurt the will hurt it. I still think it will probably be the best, but it definitely hurts it. Ravenous is being nerfed again for the wave clear, and you're losing more stacks on death. This is the important one. If this changes the way a lot of champs use this item in the dynamic of the lane, then we'll see a significant decrease in champs running this item, because they can no longer use it to hard shove the waves as quickly. Stormrazor is gaining 5 damage. Never mind. Stormrazor is a pretty good item on certain champs in situations. Stormrazor is actually not a bad item. I'm glad they're buffing it. They probably need to go even harder, something like 50 AD on this item. But it's good in niche situations. Something like if you're running into a Callista, or you need to be able to slow the enemy down. It's pretty good. Tiamat is getting the same nerf as Ravenous. This is pretty sizable. It's enough to champs which want to go Titanic as well, so it's indirectly enough to Titanic. Things like Argot who rush Titanic will be hurt significantly by this. If you're playing Argot the right way, though, then sometimes you didn't even go Tiamat because you wanted to be able to hold the wave, or you went Paradise Claw first. So it was kind of it was optional going Tiamat first. So I don't think this hurts some, but it's definitely still pretty big enough. The jungle nerfs are towards the amount of gold you gain. This will hit things which need a lot of gold, your Yees and stuff like that. Jungle Companion, and you're gaining more, Jungle Companion damage reduction plus epic one. So you're losing some damage reduction against everyone. So this is pretty big. This is a sizable nerf to jungle. So maybe we'll see jungle get brought more in line with the other roles. For the moment, jungle is probably the strongest role. And then it's fairly balanced across the rest of the map, with top probably still being the weakest. But overall, we'll have to see how this pushes the meta. Ravenous being nerfed again is definitely going to keep shifting it more towards a different direction. But for the moment, tanks in the top lane are not working. Like I said, I'll talk about it, but Ornn, Sejuani, stuff like this, their play rates dropped by almost a fourth, to almost a fourth of what they used to be, and their win rates aren't great, along with a lot of other tanks. So I think it's important to cover it. Obviously, there's outliers to Shens and Mundos, but one of them was recently reworked, and Shen, as much as he is a tank, he doesn't play as much as a tank as the others of his class. He plays more like a support. And like a fighter, so it's different for Shen. But thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one. I'll be talking about Bork tomorrow. Let's go. Alright, see ya.